Good afternoon and happy Wednesday to all of our viewers tuning in. We are so excited to kick off the month of August by spotlighting a little bit of our corporate accountability. So getting a chance to talk to our corporate partners and seeing the impact that they make beyond working with ISTI and beyond working in just the STEM challenge. Today, we are so excited to kick it off with Holly Copeland from Horizon Therapeutics. Holly, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, we're going to review a little bit about corporate responsibility and what Horizon does to make an impact in our community, and we're so thankful that you are here today. So Holly, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'd love just a brief introduction if you tell us about you and your role at Horizon.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Holly Copeland, and I'm the Senior Director of Corporate Social Responsibility, Sustainability, and Impact at Horizon Therapeutics. And what that very long title encompasses is really the philanthropic work of our company. So how do we show up in our communities and extend support in ways that are meaningful and hopefully life-changing in many regards.
Excellent. And holding this role, how did you get there?
So I would say it was a bit of a non-traditional path with lots of twists and turns. I kind of started out with this objective of working in the nonprofit sector focused on anti-poverty work. And through work that I was doing with an organization, came into contact with an elected official at the time. He was the Lieutenant Governor of Illinois, Lieutenant Governor Pat Quinn, and ended up joining his team. So sort of hopped from nonprofit to governmental work, and was with him for almost a decade. And in the last role I had with him, it involved managing the entrepreneurship, innovation, and technology department for the state, and really got to know the biotech sector as part of that work, and specifically Matter, which is our healthcare incubator in Chicago. And through those conversations, got to know Horizon very intimately. The CEO was this quintessential startup story for us from the government perspective. He brought the company here from another state and really started it from a Starbucks and a Panera Bread with his the other person who was there early on, and really scaled it to this tremendous company that it is today. But through that work, I got to know the company well. And so when I left government, it was just a natural step to take to join the Horizon team and think about ways where we could leverage the vision of the CEO to give back and support the community in ways that would impact the community in positive ways.
I feel like we hear that a lot in all the professionals that we talk to, in terms of they get their pathway in a little bit of a zigzag, but it leads you to where you're supposed to be almost. It feels right. It's the perfect mix of your skill sets and all that. Prior to getting this role, or even prior, I would say, to working in government and kind of learning the inner workings of Horizon, did you know that this existed? So looking at a corporation and saying, this is a role I want, or even knowing that it's out there?
No, I mean, I knew that I always wanted to work in some way that would be impactful. So I have a graduate degree in international political economy, and the objective there is to really understand the intersection between politics and economics. And for me, having a frame or a lens that was focused on poverty alleviation, it was really important to understand these levers that can be pulled in ways that can be helpful in eliminating or alleviating poverty. And so when thinking about how that role can be helpful in a setting that can have an impact, in my mind, it was, all right, I'm going to do direct service and nonprofit. Okay, did that. Now I'm going to work in government where there's all these resources that you can bring to bear. Did that. And then at the time, this idea of corporate social responsibility was just a relatively new field. So there weren't a lot of roles within companies that were fixated specifically on leveraging resources of the company to have an impact in the community. And in fact, when I was in school, there weren't degree programs, there were no academic programs focused on this. So it's a very new career path. It's a new field. And even when I look at peers in the space, quite often you'll find individuals that have completely unrelated backgrounds, right? They might have come from HR or facilities or communications, marketing. Very rarely will you find someone that has actually studied this in school and has followed it as a career path. I think that's changing now. There are many more programs, particularly with the sustainability lens, that are popping up. And so I think for an entry-level role, we'll see a lot more people who've had this kind of intentionality from the beginning to be in corporate social responsibility.
How long have you been in this role with Horizon?
So about 6 years now.
Okay. And what do you enjoy most about being in this role?
There are so many things. I wake up every morning and I pinch myself like I have the best job in the whole world. Um, I appreciate one sort of bringing these different lenses to the work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, having had an undergrad in business and this background in politics and economics, I feel that I can sort of bring a perspective to the work that allows me to build bridges with people who might not have a background or an inclination to understand or in some cases care, not at Horizon, because we deeply care about the community, but it kind of creates this opportunity to have a dialogue with individuals that haven't studied or aren't well versed in how to have an impact in the community. But at Horizon specifically, I mean, the ability to tap into this huge resource of employees and executives that care so much, care deeply,
Right.
and to help them kind of funnel that energy into specific projects and specific partnerships that create this win-win all around. It's a wonderful thing to be a part of, and I just feel lucky that I get to help kind of bolster all of that.
I think we've seen that firsthand, that there's a culture at Horizon that really is about caring and compassion and giving back. And that was one of my questions later on, but I'm going to pull it up a little bit earlier, is what do you think it is about Horizon as a company that nurtures this culture of community engagement, of giving back, of volunteerism, and so forth?
Really, I feel like a lot of the credit is due to our leadership and specifically our founding CEO, Tim Walbert. He is a patient himself, and he has said from the very beginning, when he took the reins of the company a little more than a decade ago, he wanted to build a different kind of company, one that really embraced giving back from its inception. And our company is not a B Corp, it's not a social entrepreneurship venture. Like we're traded on the stock exchange, like we're a public company. But he's always had an eye towards supporting the community and invested in corporate social responsibility before the company was even profitable. And part of that involved bringing me on board when the company was just 5 years old, giving me a budget, giving me resources, and giving me the support that's needed at the executive level to set the tone. So it wasn't, I've never felt like at Horizon it was sort of me kind of banging down people's doors saying, hey, let's go do this to support the community, it's the right thing to do. And instead it was, from Tim setting the tone all the way down, everyone saying, this is what we do here. And that helps create this virtuous cycle that just repeats. You start attracting the kind of talent that further fuels the culture, and you end up in a place where we are today, where the culture is just incredibly vibrant and kind and supportive. And like, I can hardly keep up with our employees. We're our team. We're
Sorry,
a small
I'm going to pause you just for a second because I think we lost your volume. Can you try speaking one more time?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Go ahead and just refresh your page.
Okay.
All good. You look super animated though, so I definitely want to hear what you were saying. For those of you viewing live, if anyone has questions, you're more than welcome to put them in the comments and we'll get those up and in. Holly, I'm going to pull you back into the stream. All right, let's see if we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Uh-oh, it's going in and out. Let's see. Let's try one more thing. I'm going to take you out. All right, let's see one more time.
Is it working now?
Oh no, it's going in and out. So I can hear little snippets. Let me try and take myself out, and I'm going to let you continue answering the question and see if that helps. So again, it was talking about kind of creating this culture. I'm going to pull myself.
Okay. So I'm assuming that the audio is now working, so I'm going to continue with answering the question. So what makes the culture so rich and vibrant at Horizon? And what I was explaining is that I feel like it really starts at the top. So our CEO, Tim Walbert, has really set the tone from the beginning when he took the reins of the company. He made this commitment to wanting to build a different kind of biopharmaceutical company, one that really embraced this concept of giving back from its inception. And despite the fact that we're not a B Corp or a social entrepreneurship venture, we're a public company, he invested in corporate social responsibility before the company was even profitable. And that involved bringing me on board when the company was about 5 years old, and giving me a budget and giving me that executive support to build and grow this corporate social responsibility department from the ground up. And what that ended up doing is creating this virtuous cycle that has contributed to the culture that we have today, which is we now attract the type of talent that are drawn to our culture. So regardless if employees are working in facilities or in business development or human resources, I've heard so many times that employees have checked our social platforms or have just asked around about who we are as a company. And when they hear about the way that we show up for our communities, when they hear about the commitment that we have to supporting our nonprofit partners, they're drawn to working for us. And so it's been a lot of fun seeing the evolution of the company to where we are today. Now more than 1,000 global employees, and together they kind of create this army of people who are committed to service and committed to showing up in our communities.
Okay, thank you for being so flexible about that. Awesome. And again, that sounds good. And we've seen that firsthand in terms of that virtuous cycle of really seeing mentors who've been with us since 2015 and just continue to come back and work with schools. I would love to now zoom into Horizon as a whole. So we understand the footprint of Horizon's impact and the philanthropic arm is really large, not just in our local community, but really beyond. And so is there an overall kind of mission of Horizon, and how does a company like Horizon choose exactly where to invest?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess I'll segment that question into maybe two different parts. So when we are seeking out new partners, something that's very important to us is to be focused on creativity. So we're a smaller company, and because we're smaller, we don't necessarily have the same budget as some of the larger companies might have. So their ability to write checks with a couple more zeros might exist. So when we engage with a partner, what we're really looking for is that mission alignment. Where does that overlap exist? And how can we bring our resources and assets to bear in ways that can really help address gaps that might exist with that nonprofit partner? So the flexibility and creativity to come up with ways for us to be helpful that go beyond just like, here are X, Y, and Z programs, and we're looking for you to write a check in this amount. Like, that's an engagement that we tend to shy away from. I will say too, when seeking out partnerships, we kind of have the full spectrum of size and scale. So we have a couple of partners who would be considered like startups. So run out of a family home, and they're kind of bootstrapping and have a powerful mission, but are really just kind of like starting the process of growing this nonprofit, all the way to larger international well-established partnerships like UNICEF, for example, who most people will have heard of. But I would say that common theme amongst those is the creativity. So how are we showing up in a way that is aligned with our business and our interests and passions, and how does that match up with the organization's mission?
Awesome. I'm just popping in and out. So I love that you brought up this idea of doing more than just writing a check, but it really is the personnel. It's this idea of skills-based volunteering and being able to provide that for Horizon. And again, this is one of our later questions, but I think it just fits in really, really nicely here. Why is skills-based volunteering important to you as providing opportunities to employees at Horizon? Why do you think it's important to the employees that you do work with?
Well, I think on an individual level, it's important for employees to feel like they have an opportunity to provide some sort of support that's aligned with their skill set. So some people love to just kind of roll up their sleeves and they're ready to do anything. Others have a higher comfort level if they're kind of focused on their subject matter expertise and they're lending that to a nonprofit that otherwise might not have the resources to have access to that. I think one partnership, one example that really clearly exemplifies this approach that we take with our partners, we refer to it as leveraged impact, but it's really kind of thinking about how can we go deep with our partners and really utilize skills-based volunteering that benefits the partners. So there's a nonprofit organization called Lake County Haven that's up by our northern suburban office, and it's a shelter for women and children who are kind of fleeing oftentimes violence, and it's a transitional housing shelter to kind of make sure that they're safe and they have a roof over their heads. And so we provide a traditional annual support through just a sponsorship, but in addition to that, our IT department has worked with their team to build out their IT infrastructure and donate IT equipment. Our facilities team has worked with them to donate office furniture and furniture for the shelter itself, making sure that they have all the furnishings that they might need. Our business development team has showed up and cooked dinner for the women and the children and talked to them about aspirations and life goals that they might have. And then our summer interns actually just this past I guess it was 2 weeks ago, worked with them over the course of the summer to help them create a new marketing and branding campaign for one of their initiatives at the program. And so, well, and actually I'd be remiss if I didn't mention too, we also have this internal board placement program where we've helped place an advisory board member and a full member on their board of directors. So the way that we engage with them, it leverages all the different assets that we can bring to bear. And it also thinks about like the skills of the employees and how they can take those specific skills and leverage those in ways that can be beneficial to the nonprofit. Again, addressing gaps that exist. So we want to make sure that what we're doing is substantive and additive to accomplishing the mission of a particular nonprofit partner.
I love that. Again, it's like creating deep roots. It's nothing superficial. It's all kind of looking at the success of the partners that you work with and how you can leverage, who is in Horizon to make really, really real change, which I think is, again, really admirable. And another reason we wanted to highlight Horizon and kind of the accountability that you hold within the corporation as a whole. What is rewarding in terms of supporting your mission? So I know you've talked about your role, but overall, what do you feel like is a rewarding part and what might be a really challenging part in kind of being in a corporate responsibility sector or representing Horizon's interests when kind of venturing into the community?
So I would say a rewarding part is, again, sort of serving as that intermediary between an environment that has a lot of resources and a desire to give back and be helpful. And then on the other side, understanding intimately what the needs are in the community. So what do nonprofits need? What does the community need to thrive and grow? And to be able to build a bridge between those two worlds is it's a special opportunity for anyone that's in a role like mine, because without that intermediary presence, there's a disconnect, and it's a shame because there's so many positive things that can come from joining those communities together. I would say that the most challenging aspect of the job is having to prioritize. There are so many needs that exist in so many important areas, and unfortunately, just not enough resources to go around. I'm still looking for the money tree that like has the blank check attached to it because I'm ready, and I've got lots of ideas. But until that day comes, unfortunately, there's this this need to prioritize how we're allocating the resources.
I was laughing off screen when you said when the money tree comes, because I think as a nonprofit, we feel that at our soul. So 100% see those challenges in both the rewarding part and again, those, if you could do it all, you would. You have the passion, it's clear. And I think, again, the support that you have from your executive team and from even the personnel around Horizon would facilitate that kind of that excitement. In terms of looking at what Horizon supports and having mission alignment, I know you mentioned, what are some of the things that you see in common? I know for ISTI, we are primarily focused on STEM education. And so is that something that you look to serve? I know you mentioned, again, with Lake County and the Haven, but are there other kind of alignments in the mission of who you support that align?
Mm-hmm. So we have 4 pillars of giving at Horizon, and a lot of, well, all of our giving is really tied or rooted in one of those pillars. So those include healthcare, STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics, innovation, and environmental sustainability. And so our objective is to really find nonprofit partners that are addressing one of those key areas in some sort of substantive way. And again, trying to understand where that overlap exists, where we can step in and really bring our resources to bear in a creative way. And I'll share another example. There's a nonprofit organization called Gift of Adoption, and they specialize in helping to place children who are in an orphanage and looking for their forever home. But they focus on the most difficult or challenging cases. So those include children who have siblings and or have severe medical issues. And they went through this process where they looked at the data, and of the children that had medical issues, they determined that a very high percentage of them actually had rare diseases. We at Horizon Therapeutics are a rare disease company. So when we started to dialogue with them on how we might work together, we landed in this place where we decided to seed this new Rare Is Adoption Fund that will place 30 children in their forever homes over the course of 3 years, and all of them have rare diseases. The first family that we were able to help, if anyone gets a chance, you'll have to go to our website. We've got a video that showcases sort of this experience. It follows the family before they're able to bring Nora home. She was in China, and kind of when she came home, and then after she had been home for about 6 months. And you'll have to have a tissue box nearby because it's inevitable. I've watched it 38 times and I cry every single time. It's a very powerful story. But for me, it's such a powerful testament to the kind of impact that we can have when we find that mission alignment, when we find a nonprofit partner that's working in one of those 4 pillars, and we come up with a creative way for us to lend our support in a way that's related to our work, our core business. So
I will absolutely need to watch that and check out that link. And if anyone's interested, I'll get it from Holly and post it on the video as well so that people can track that. And again, I like the pillars that are guiding factors. So it's not just, recognizing that there's organizations doing good things, but it's really something that aligns with the mission of the company and what their business is every day, and then how they make an impact on their community. Why is it important for a company like Horizon to have a philanthropic or social responsibility sector to their business?
So this is like the $1 million question, right? It's important because a business is like one element of a community. And although the success of that business might be directly impacted based on their employees, their investors, business decisions that are made by all of those various stakeholders, but the fact also remains that they benefit from whatever assets exist in that larger community, right? So what's the quality of the schools in their community? What's the quality of the housing stock, the roads, the infrastructure? And all of those things kind of in unison create this space that allows businesses to grow and flourish. And so this concept of corporate social responsibility, or this responsibility of companies to give back and support their communities, is this acknowledgement that success doesn't happen in a vacuum or in a silo, right? Like there's this intersectionality that exists across society, and that we, just like all the other stakeholders in our communities, have a role to play in taking care of the most vulnerable amongst us, and making sure that we're all investing in creating equity and opportunities for everyone in our communities. And so we take that commitment and that responsibility, to heart at Horizon. It's something that we allow to sort of drive our decisions. I mean, to your last question about like I discussed our 4 pillars of giving and how all of our giving is really channeled through there. An element that's not necessarily on paper, but something that we use as a guiding force is this eye towards equity. And so even if we're supporting organizations that might be focused on something, somewhat unrelated to diversity and inclusion and equity, we also apply this lens or this layer of evaluation where we're looking like, does it affect historically marginalized communities? Does it affect girls? Are there ways that we can help apply this inclusivity to the work that we're doing to bring in everyone, so we're all part of this dialogue, we're all sitting at the table, and is there a way to do that while we're extending support? And so I just, it's important that we all recognize that and kind of embrace our opportunity to give back and support everyone in our community.
I think that's a very powerful sentiment that you said, and I just want to highlight that a little bit more in terms of the business is not necessarily, the one part of a community, but there's a lot of different stakeholders that work together to create this flourishing community, and looking at those vulnerable populations and how the business has a role in creating opportunities for everyone to succeed. And again, I just think that's really powerful that not all corporations have that lens. And I think I'm just thinking about what our world would look like if that was the kind of guiding force of understanding what community engagement really meant. In line with that, I think that's something we also see even in the STEM field or at the STEAM field, in terms of this silo, and that success cannot happen in a silo, whether that's success with diversity and equity, whether that's innovation, or whether that's just moving a community forward in whatever progress that looks like. It doesn't happen siloed. And so I think, again, those tenets tie into a lot of different aspects of communities. With specific to STEM and specific to ISTI and Horizon's partnership, when you do work with an organization like ISTI or work in the STEAM field, what do you hope to see? So what do you hope the impact is at the end of the road?
So I think from our perspective, it's all about engagement, right? We want to see youth interested in and engaged in real life STEM problems. We've got, a pretty serious deficiency in our pipeline when it comes to STEM careers. And then in particular, if you look at communities of color and women, right, they're just underrepresented, and we need more people thinking about STEM careers, but we certainly need more people of color and more women thinking about STEM careers. And so for us to support initiatives like the STEM Challenge, it creates, they're really like dual benefits, right? So it creates the opportunity for us to invest in the pipeline development, which is incredibly important to us. It creates an opportunity for our employees to engage and give back directly, which when you have an employee workforce like we do, like they're hungry for those kind of opportunities. But it allows us to help with sort of injecting this different approach to education as well, right? So we've heard, right, like it's hard for children to get excited about STEM in that traditional format where there's a teacher kind of lecturing the students and they're just sitting there in their desks, just listening and having this inbound conversation primarily. And what the STEM Challenge does is it creates experiential learning opportunities. So we take a problem that our team at Horizon is actually challenged with, and we present it to the kids and say, hey, we don't really have this figured out yet. Like, what do you think? And help them with that ideation process, help them problem solve, and then ultimately help them create prototypes and a professional presentation on why their solution is the best option. And all of those skills are real life skills that they can kind of put in their back pocket when they go out into the workforce, and hopefully serve as an opportunity to get them excited about what it means to work in STEM, right? We're kind of breaking down this myth that a STEM job involves a white lab coat and you're in a lab and you've got like test tubes and that's it, right? So opportunities, experiences like this hopefully expose kids to, oh no, there are so many different elements within STEM based on just this project, right? I can be in research and development, I can be in communications, I can be in manufacturing, right? So that it's a nice way to kind of compartmentalize all these pieces and sort of present it to kids as a exposure opportunity.
At the Horizon Share Out this year, one of the students said something very similar when one of the mentors kind of pushed them, like, what have you taken away from this experience so far? And one of the young women was saying, I used to think that an engineer was just like a man in a warehouse or like at a lab table. And she's like, and I realized there's so much more to engineering than just that, than just the design process, but really further the creativity that's involved, the communication, the teamwork that's involved. So I'm glad kind of those are the impacts that you're looking for, because that's definitely what drives us at ISTI with the STEM Challenge as well. How do you think Horizon initiatives will evolve in the coming months or years? I know that we're looking at a very different economy, a different workforce, just kind of seeing what's happening in the sciences as well, and Horizon kind of being in the heart of that. So where do you see this evolving?
Sure. So I think from a CSR perspective, our objective is to really take ownership of our role as being a global citizen. So we're aligned with 11 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and are committed to making sure that the work that we're doing sort of rolls up into addressing these larger global goals. And we want to continue to move in that direction. From a business perspective, our objective is to not just pay lip service to these commitments that are made to diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? But to really pull those commitments through the business. So as an example, we recently just engaged in a pay equity study, and less than 1% of global companies can say that they have pay equity. And the study ended up proving that not only do we have pay equity for gender, but we also have it based on race, which is something that we are incredibly proud to be able to say. And so actions like that have a real difference when it comes to saying, like, we're committed to diversity, we're committed to supporting the community. That's one thing, but when you pull it through the business and you have tangible ways to show that you're doing that, that is more powerful. And so our intention is to continue to do that. And then I think, when it comes to diversifying the pipeline and thinking about what the future holds, we continue every day to see these reports on how diversity of thought impacts the bottom line in positive ways. And we are committed to this idea of helping fuel not just the pipeline, but also our teams internally, and making sure that all voices have a seat at the table and that there's representation across the board to help us guide our decisions as we continue to grow and flourish.
Thinking through the students that your mentors work with, and again, that's in Chicago and also a little bit suburban as well. What would you tell those students if they were interested in working for a company like Horizon in the future?
So I would say they should use every opportunity to build relationships. So in experience like the ISTI STEM Challenge, reach out to that mentor, develop a relationship, ask them questions. You don't have to limit yourself to the questions that are related to the project, but if you're curious about what they studied in college or if they have advice for you, like, don't hesitate to be overly inquisitive, right? People are often very eager to share about their life experiences. So take all of that information and distill it and use what you need, use what's helpful. I would say when you are seeking out a professional role, it's really important to make sure that if you have the opportunity, that there's a cultural alignment between the culture that exists within an organization and the culture that exists within you personally. So, Horizon is a very special place, and it works for people who have this commitment to service, who are creative, who are entrepreneurial minded. A lot of the work that we do within Horizon is like we're building as we go. I'll tell people it's like we're building the plane as we're running down the runway sometimes, because these are all new positions and the company is just flourishing. So if you enjoy that kind of environment where there's uncertainty and a lot of creativity, then you would flourish in a place like Horizon. Maybe you don't, right? Like maybe you like to be able to understand exactly what you can expect on a day-to-day basis. And then maybe you want to find a company that's more aligned and has that kind of a culture. So I would say just over the next couple of years, just try to be in tune with yourself, get to know yourself. Where do you feel comfortable? Which spaces do you like to inhabit? And think through how that can translate into a work setting or a career path that might be complementary to what your natural inclinations are.
That's all great advice. And I feel like I want to clip that last part and like play it for all of our students, just having that discovery piece over the next couple years, whether it's in the STEM challenge experience or beyond, but really finding what aligns with what their passion is and what their identity is and all that. I think that's, again, really great advice. So Holly, I want to say thank you first for the flexibility with tech, but also for answering our questions so thoughtfully. I want to turn it over to you and just see, is there anything else that you feel like is a pillar of what Horizon stands for when it comes to corporate social responsibility, or just something that you'd love to share with our viewers about your role?
Sure. Well, I guess there's a safe assumption that anyone who might be listening to the video is a future leader, hopefully in a STEM career. But as they go out and they finish college and they join a company, I think it's important for us to all realize you don't have to wait to give back and support your community, right? Like you don't have to wait until you hit a certain revenue target or you hire a certain number of employees. Impact can be made at any size. And Horizon is a great testament to that. As I mentioned earlier, our CEO invested in giving back before the company was even profitable. And there were lots of rewards that were reaped as a result of that decision. But even beyond that, you can give back in ways that don't necessarily come with a price tag, right? Like you can create engagement opportunities for your employees. And so I feel like if we all kind of had that mentality of leading from wherever we sit and having this community focused perspective, that, not to sound overly cheesy, but the world would be such a much better place if we all kind of own that responsibility that we have in that act and to take action and make sure that we're doing what we can to help others.
Well, Holly, thank you again for taking the time to connect with us today and kind of share your insight in the world of corporate social responsibility, and especially at Horizon. Again, to any of our viewers, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll make sure Holly sees them. Otherwise, I wanted to wish just everyone a wonderful rest of their week. And Holly, thank you again for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.